What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Doug Las Vegas Bets UFC Betting Show. We're back here after another slightly profitable card that made 3 weeks in a row of profit as we cashed out on UFC 330 for 0.7 units by cashing 2 of our 3 bets. We hit Jalen Turner moneyline as well as Esteban Ribovics by KO TKO while losing on the best bet of the week, which was Joel Alvarez inside the distance. He lost outright to Chidi and Joe Kawani in a bit of an upset there. Nevertheless, we move on to Sacramento this week. I'm not going to go over the whole card this week. To be honest, I am just getting more busy. We haven't got a week off for a long time, so I'm trying to avoid the burnout as much as I can. So I'm going to skip the minus 900s, some of the more boring fights on the card to me. If you guys don't mind, believe it or not, I don't have anything groundbreaking for most of those fights. If you want my opinion, the big favorite probably wins pretty easily in most of the ones that I skipped. But I am still going to go over the main card here today, and I do still have my favorite bet for the card. So without further ado, let's get into this. First up here, we got the main event between Anthony Fluffy Hernandez and Gregory Robocop Rodrigues. Quick got to touch on fun nickname matchup. Good nickname matchup between a couple of fun middleweights in this 5-rounder. Start off here talking about Fluffy Hernandez. This guy is coming off a loss to Sean Strickland, but before that, a lot of people for a long time were calling him the dark horse of the division. This guy's wrestling and pace is difficult for anyone. He just wears guys down nonstop, takedown attempts, nonstop staying in your face. It's been compared to like a middleweight Marab. Look at that control time, the takedowns landed. He grinds on people. He makes it really miserable to fight him. Unfortunately, Sean Strickland was a really difficult stylistic matchup. It was tough for him to track him down. And we've seen Sean Strickland has so much 5-round experience, it's hard to wear him down and take over later in fights. So I think just ran into, such a big jump in competition and a tough stylistic matchup his last time out that it all came crashing down to earth when he was a big favorite in that one. But still, you look back, wins over Roman Dolidze, where he absolutely dominated and embarrassed him. Win over Brendan Allen, which has aged nicely, even though he lost the first round, showing that he can take over even in a short 3-rounder, wore him down to get those rounds 2 and 3 against another strong grappler. Before that, the TK over Michel Pereira, where he just absolutely dominated in an impressive submission over Roman Kopylov, which has also aged pretty well. On the other side, Gregory Robocop Rodrigues. This guy is a destructive striker early. A bit of a questionable gas tank. We've seen him go later in fights and be fine before, but I think it's very pace dependent. If he throws hard trying to finish early, he will slow down badly like we saw against Cannonier. But if he manages things properly, or if it's not an overly high pace, just back and forth, he can manage his gas tank for 3 rounds like he did against Christian Leroy Duncan. Still, in this specific matchup against Fluffy Hernandez, I'm very concerned about the gas tank. Still, I think he has a very clear path to victory in this one, as he has in many of his fights, which is just walk through the guy. I mean, he's coming off a first-round knockout over Bruno Ferreira. He got the first-round knockout over Jack Hermanson a while back. Got those early knockdowns against Jared Cannonier. Has early success in almost all of his fights because he's just such a strong and powerful guy. And he's very difficult to grapple as well. I think Fluffy Hernandez has a clear grappling advantage here. But it's not like this is a guy we've never seen use his ground game before. This is a very high-level guy who's competed in jiu-jitsu before. We've seen him use the grappling to get on top of guys, get ground and pound wins, go for submissions. Overall, I just think he's very strong, well-rounded fighter. I understand why people are taking the underdog shot on him here. But to lead into my pick, I do think it's a pretty binary matchup. It's easy to break down. Robocop can get him early. We've seen Fluffy have slight durability issues with getting finished by Strickland, as well as the early finish lost to Kevin Holland a while back. But I think the longer it goes, the more Fluffy takes over. I do think he can have grappling success in this one, because as good and as strong as Robocop is, we've seen Fluffy getting these grappling exchanges and have success against strong grapplers. Before Roman, Dolidze was a tough guy to grapple. Ended up getting embarrassed in round 4. Brendan Allen, a tough guy to grapple. Fluffy had taken over late in that matchup. RoboCop, a tough guy to grapple. Now you've got 5 rounds, and we know his gas tank is not the best when he's pushed, and Fluffy is going to push. So if you're betting RoboCop, I do think that knockout, those early rounds, the 1-2 props. Whoops, accidentally stopped recording there. Gonna keep going with this fight though to finish. I think, yeah, if you're betting RoboCop, the early round props is the way to go. But personally, I think Fluffy Hernandez is going to end up winning this one. I'm considering the money line, the inside the distance, and the late round props. I haven't exactly placed a bet yet, but just when I consider that, I think RoboCop is a bit of a better matchup for him, and we're getting a huge discount on the price tag when we've seen Fluffy as a huge favorite in all of his matchups going back to the Michel Pereira fight where he looked like a huge favorite. And now he has a matchup against a guy who I believe he's going to be able to take over in a 5-rounder, which I think favors him heavily. I think minus 160 is a good price on the money line, but I am going to dig into those props a little more before I actually place a bet. So as for my prediction here, I'll say Fluffy round 4-5 TKO. And betting wise, stay tuned on my social medias to see what exactly I lock in for this fight. On to the co-main event here as Sergey Spivak takes on Vitor Petrino in an interesting heavyweight tilt, a matchup of ranked heavyweights, with Spivak holding down his spot in the top 10, Petrino trying to push into that top 10 after a good start to his run up at heavyweight. Start here talking about Spivak. I quite like Spivak, actually. I cashed on him earlier this year against Ante Delia as an underdog, and I praised him a good bit going into that one because I think the fight before that, even the Waldo Cortez Acosta matchup that he lost, showed a lot of improvement in his game. I think he should have got the decision in that one. I thought his boxing looked much improved. I thought his cardio looked much improved across both of those matchups. Before he was thought of as kind of a gasser, and now he's having grappling success in the third rounds of fights, lifting up big heavyweights. And his boxing, he looks far less helpless than he used to. He used to really struggle when guys got in his face. And even in his last fight against Ante Delia, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. He did get hurt in the second round, almost finished. But I also thought it was kind of a good thing to see him get hurt and come back to recover to win the fight, win the next round, get back to winning minutes, because we had seen, it had kind of just gone south immediately for Spivak in the past when he got hurt. The dog was maybe in question in him, but now we've seen him get hurt, come back and get the win. We saw him box with a competent boxer in Waldo Cortez Acosta. We've seen him go 3 rounds, having success in that third round a couple times in a row. I really think he's starting to put it together, and now he's got a lot of experience against high-level opposition in this division with the boxing put together, the cardio, and his grappling was already his base. I really think Spivak can be a tricky guy to beat in this division. And on the other side, we got Vitor Petrino. He moved up as a very athletic light heavyweight, now looks just one of the more chiseled, athletic-looking heavyweights. Got off to a 3-0 start with quick submission over Austin Lane, a knockout in a good fight with Thomas Peterson, where he had a lot of success with the striking. And most recently, he got the close decision win over Steven Asplund, where he survived getting hurt early to win a lower volume rounds 2 and 3. Now with Petrino, I think there's a lot of positives to look at with his heavyweight start. He's getting the decision, the TKO, the submission win, showing his roundedness, fighting a wrestler, and Peterson out striking him, showing his grappling against Austin Lane, and then surviving early against Steven Asplund to come back and win the decision. But I still have the same kind of concerns that I had about him in his light heavyweight run. Very unsure about his grappling overall. I mean, you look back at the Anton Turkalj fight, he was letting the Pleasure Man get his back, a very low-level opposition. He put his head right into a guillotine against Anthony Smith not long ago, got smoked with the right hand against Dustin Jacoby, almost knocked out again against Asplund, so does he have a great chin? And he slowed down bad against Asplund, showing those cardio issues despite him not cutting weight anymore, are still there. So, as athletic, as dangerous, as powerful as he is, I still think I have a lot of questions about Petrino. I still think he has a lot of growth to do as a fighter before he is a top level guy. So I look at this one, and Petrino's the favorite. It's been coming down. I am pretty sure I'm going to get involved on the Spivak side here. I've seen a lot of people. He's been a pretty popular dog, which kind of scares me because I don't like backing the popular underdogs. But I really I struggle to justify Petrino as a favorite. I think he has knockout upside. Like I said, there has been concern about when Spivak gets hit, his ability to recover. And Petrino obviously hits pretty hard. We saw him get the knockout against Thomas Peterson up at heavyweight. But still, I don't think Spivak's that far behind in the actual technical striking. His boxing's looked fine against guys who I think are better strikers than Petrino in the last two. I think Spivak might even have the cardio edge if this one goes late into round 3. And I think Spivak has a clear grappling edge. So I have plenty of reasons to like him in this one. He's around plus 125. You can get him plus 140 right now, even on Betway. I might lock that one in before I even stop recording to make sure I get that price. But we'll see. Keep an eye on my socials to make sure I don't flake on that one. But yeah, my pick for this one's going to be Spivak by decision. On to the light heavyweights, formerly middleweights, as it seems everyone is making that jump these days, as Reinier de Ridder takes on Roman Dolidze. We'll start with RDR here. He's moving up. He had a really strong start to his UFC run. He put together a bunch of wins, starting with that Gerald Mearshart late submission, going all the way to a main event win over Robert Whittaker. Got the upset over Bo Nickel, the quick submission against Kevin Holland. So it was a hot start at middleweight. A lot of people were saying they wanted to see Reinier de Ridder challenge for a title at middleweight. But it kind of came to a screeching halt with the main event matchup with Brendan Allen. Was supposed to be Fluffy Hernandez, who we talked about already. Unfortunately, he had to pull out of what would have been a number 1 contender fight between the two of them at the time. And Brendan Allen stepped in. RDR looked like he should have also pulled out of that one because he gassed out so badly that he had to quit on the stool after round 4. Yeah, he blamed that on having all the weight cuts in a few months, which makes sense. He was a huge middleweight who had fought like 5-6 times in just over a year or 14 months or something. So that made sense. His cardio hadn't looked that bad before. I mean, he had just gone 5 rounds with Robert Whittaker. Not saying he had good cardio by any stretch of the imagination, but it didn't look that bad. Took some months off, and then in March came back against Caio Borralho, lost the decision. That was a tricky matchup for him. It was going to be tricky for him to get on top and have grappling success consistently through that one, and Caio was the much faster, more athletic striker. Just a tricky matchup against a pretty solid middleweight there. And now we see him moving up to light heavyweight to try and find new life again here against Roman Dolidze, who is also looking for new life. He lost a weird decision with Christian Leroy Duncan. He had some grappling success, was just outmatched in the striking athleticism department. Stop me if you heard that one 5 seconds ago. But yeah, we saw Christian Leroy Duncan beat him after Anthony Hernandez gave him that really bad loss. And he's moving up here to light heavyweight. We have seen him once before against Anthony Smith. He wasn't the biggest light heavyweight, but you could tell he was a pretty thick guy, probably had a pretty tough cut, and his gas tank wasn't always the best, so maybe that cut, he felt like it was taking something out of him. Also, pretty durable, pretty hard-hitting guy, so I don't think he's going to necessarily be outmatched in strength up at this weight. As far as this matchup goes, I find this one a pretty tricky one to break down. I have a tough time justifying RDR at that big price, especially expecting it to be an awkward fight. They're both tricky grapplers. Dolidze is a tricky guy to stay on top of, especially if he's not tired, and I feel like RDR isn't going to be able to get him that much more tired than him that he's going to be able to stay on top. I think the striking is close. RDR maybe has the advantage overall with the step in knees and the length, but the pure boxing of Dolidze is probably significantly better. overall, I just don't really have a strong read on this one. My pick is going to be RDR by decision. I just think it's an awkward 3-round fight where he is slightly ahead the whole time. But as far as betting this one, I'm completely staying away from this one. I just have too hard a time visualizing what's going to happen between two awkward fighters. Lightweight banger here as Marquel Mederos takes on the always exciting Mason the Dragon Jones. We'll start by talking about Mason Jones. He's back on his second UFC run, and so far it has been electric as expected. Can go back to his first UFC run. He had some good wars. Clearly looked UFC level, but he actually requested his own release. I find it a very interesting story. He wanted to go back and develop on the regional scene. Went back to Cage Warriors, got some more wins. Came back to the UFC, maintained that always exciting style, but just had the tools a bit sharper. And now he's got 3 straight wins back in the UFC with that win over Jeremy Stevens, the comeback against Balaji Oki, and another comeback against Axel Sola. He's been dropped in the first round of both of his last 2 fights, but took over late, finishing Oki in round 2 and almost finishing Axel Sola right at the bell in round 3 of what was a crazy fight there. So yeah, I mean, the book's pretty simple on Mason Jones. His pace is ridiculous. He's going to throw the kitchen sink at you. He has a crazy chin, and he's pretty skilled on the ground, too. You can't be a slouch anywhere with this guy. He can be controlled. You can get damage off on him, but you're either going to have to be able to do that consistently over 3 rounds, or you're going to have to be able to get him out of there early, and so far, nobody's been able to get him out of there, even though a lot of people have been able to drop him, so you can't really bank on that. On the other side, Marquel Mederos, I think this guy's a solid fighter. Last fight he got a draw against Chris Padilla. I thought that was a fair decision. I think I'm one of very few people who didn't think that was a bad robbery on Padilla's side. I thought Mederos did good work in rounds 2 and 3. He was butchering him in the clinch with the elbows, the low kicks, the movement. I think Padilla just walking forward gave the better visual, but the work that got done, I thought I could easily justify giving Mederos rounds 2 and 3 in that one. If anything, the least justifiable thing to me was the point deduction. I thought that was a little crazy. But yeah, I think Mederos is good movement, good low kicks, pretty solid boxing. I do have concerns when the pace gets high, he kind of slows down and has shown a lack of finishing ability or real pop in the UFC. Even when he had Mark Troinsky's leg completely destroyed, couldn't get him out of there. Hasn't got finishes over Landon Quinones, Austin Hubbard. Still a young guy. I don't know. So when I break down this fight, I mean, I think my thoughts as a pure pick are pretty simple. I expect Mederos to have some decent success early, a close first round. I don't know that he drops Mason Jones or clearly wins it like the last few guys have. I don't know that I put him on the same level as Axel Solo or as dangerous as Balaji Oki, but I do think he can have some success. But as often happens with Mason Jones and with Mederos having not had the greatest pace over 3 rounds in the past, I mean, he has good pace, but you need elite pace to keep up with Mason Jones. Axel Solo was a guy who had gone 5 rounds before, and he couldn't come close to keeping up with the pace. So make no mistake, it's not a knock on Mederos, but I do think at the end of the day, the difference in this one is going to be that Mason Jones pace and pressure. I just think it's such a difficult X factor to deal with, such a difficult X factor to train for. On paper, it's so easy to do damage to him and be in good enough shape to keep it up for 3 rounds, but in practice it's been so difficult to do, and I think that's why Mason Jones is such a big favorite. With his wild style and how he takes damage, I'm definitely not eager to back him as a big favorite, so I'm going to sit this one out betting wise. But as for my prediction, yeah, I have Mason Jones round 3/decision. It's tough to see whether he's going to finish Mederos. Mederos is a really tough dude, but that 3rd round is going to get sketchy. All right, final fight I am going to talk about on this card. Another lightweight matchup here as Chris Taco Padilla takes on Nasrat Haqparast. Now, Padilla's had a good start in the UFC, 4 wins, 1 draw. A lot of people think that should be 5 wins, no losses with 3 finishes. Looked super durable. That was a little concern on the regional scene, but yeah, I mean, he's taken damage well and gotten lots of comeback wins. That's also a concern, but we'll get to that in a sec. Showing a really violent Muay Thai style, throws really hard, sharp elbows that cut people open, butchered guys like Ishmael Bonfim, opened up a nice cut that ended the fight with Rong Zhu. So yeah, this guy's a violent style, fan friendly. He's got the submission game too. Saw him get the submission in the debut against Yamas Lontop. My problem is I don't think he's the best minute winner, which you have to have that skill if you want to reach the upper echelon most of the time. You look going back even to that fight with Yon Top, he was an underdog, was behind for. I mean, that fight didn't even go around, but it felt like he was behind early. The Rongzhu fight, he was clearly behind before he landed that clean elbow and got the dog stoppage. Again, not saying it's a fluke, it's just not a good thing that he's behind all those minutes. A very close fight with Jai Herbert, who Jai's a solid veteran, but you want to separate yourself from him if you're a guy in your prime who's looking to ascend to that next level. The Ishmael Bonfim fight, I try to give him credit, but it's also very easy to overlook considering how flaky Bonfim is and how terrible he looked like at the weigh-in. And then the Marquel Mederos fight, again, most people think he won, but I didn't really like how he fought the last 2 rounds. I thought left too much open to interpretation. Like I said before talking about Mederos, I can easily justify giving Mederos those rounds. He was doing good work in the clinch. Good work was done, even though Padilla was the one walking forward. On the other side, we got Nasrat Haqparast. This guy's been around the UFC for a long time. He has 15 UFC fights at just 31 years old, so the experience is there. And he was on a 5-fight win streak going into his last one once he took the step down. Got pushed up in competition pretty early in his career. I mean, we saw him fighting guys like Mark Casey as early as 2018. Drew Dober in 2020, had the 2 fights with Dan Hooker and King Green in 2021 and 2022. So this guy has fought the upper echelon when he was back in his 20s and now in his 30s, having had that 5-fight win streak, even if we'll pick the win streak apart in a sec, even if a couple of them were close. I mean, I think this might be, he might have been at the best version of himself at that point rather than when he was probably most notable fighting against Dan Hooker and King Green. That being said, on the win streak, you got to look at the fights with Jared Gordon and Esteban Ribovics. Most people do believe he lost those fights, although I'm going to give him a bit of a pass. The Ribovics fight was very close. I say that as a big Ribovics fan, too. Round 1, Haqparast looked outstanding. Round 2, it felt like Ribovics shifted the tide, but it was still a very close round. Haqparast did do great work early in the round, and round 3, Ribovics obviously had taken over. The Jared Gordon fight, I think, maybe a little less debatable. I thought Gordon got that one for sure. But Jared Gordon's a tough, tricky fighter with solid boxing. In 2024, he was on a pretty good roll there. So I don't necessarily think that's the worst loss. And the Quillen Salkild loss, I mean, he got caught with a huge head kick, but I don't think that's a huge knock on his durability. He still had just the one knockout loss in his career prior to that. And Quillen Salkild has been finishing everybody, whether it's by knockout or submission. That guy's a sharp finisher who's now up near the top 5 of the division. So how much you want to hold that one against him, you go ahead. So, I mean, when you consider the public is considered his last 3 performances lackluster, even if I think the Ribovics performance was pretty good against a guy with crazy pace, and the Gordon fight wasn't that bad. I feel like this might be a little bit of a buy low on Haqparast and a sell high on Padilla. So as we go into my pick here, this is near a pick 'em. It's minus 120 right now in most spots. And I just put out a bet on my socials on Nasrat Haqparast minus 120. I took 1.2 units. And that's going to be my favorite bet on this entire card. That's why I wanted to cover this fight. I just like Haqparast's minute winning ability, especially early in the fight. I think he has the sharp boxing. I don't think Padilla is going to be able to walk him down. I think he's too experienced. I'm not concerned about his durability despite coming off the head kick loss. It's been almost a year. We see guys get knocked out and come back. It's concerning. Yeah, it could be really bad, but at the end of the day, it's impossible to tell. And I really think that more often than not, it's not going to be an issue. So give me -120 on the much more experienced and battle-tested Nasrat Haqparast here. I think he wins a decision, but the plus 190 is not that much different from the -120 in my head. So I thought I'd just go easy and take the money line for -120. But yeah, my prediction for this one is going to be Nasrat Haqparast to take a decision win. All right, well, thank you guys so much yet again for tuning in. Sorry I didn't go over all the fights, but I'm trying to save myself from the burnouts so that I can keep going because we do not get a week off for a long time. There's lots of fights to go over. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the card this weekend. I'm hoping to catch a lot of it. Again, I'm going to another CFL game this weekend. I've been missing a lot of cards lately. Hopefully, I don't keep that trend up. But yeah, hopefully I catch much of the card. My only bet that's locked in right now is Nasrat Haqparast money line. Although I am expecting to lock in some form of Anthony Hernandez or his inside distance late props and Sergey Spivak as well. So keep an eye on my socials at Doug Las Vegas Bets on Instagram and Twitter for that. One final time, thank you guys. Please leave a like, subscribe, and comment if you feel like helping me out. And I will see you guys next week.